That was the best timing we've ever had, I think. Hi, and welcome to Thursday Night Live here at Soaring Profits. As always, the wonderful, beautiful, talented Patrick is to my left or right, and the incredible James is here. And today we have the wonderful Kelly-Ann. Kelly-Ann is a poet, published writer, and just an all-around wonderful woman. We've had the wonderfully good time in the green room just ahead of this whole interview, just joking it up and laughing, and she's hilarious. So you're going to really enjoy this. Kelly-Ann is the mother of 3 wonderful children, and she was a teacher for quite a while until she decided to raise her kids at home. And then she decided to become a librarian for a while. And after becoming a librarian, COVID hit. And like COVID hit everybody in certain ways and changed everyone's life, it changed Kelly-Ann's life as well. So they made the decision that she would stay at home with her 3 kids and have a more hands-on approach with raising them, which is just wonderful. And during that time, though, something incredible happened for Kelly-Ann, something life-changing. She started writing, and she started writing poetry. And somehow, some way, she met the wonderful Lisa Browning, which we talk about all the time here on Soaring Profits, because she has sent us so much talented people to interview, and Kelly-Ann is no different. So Kelly-Ann, in under a year, you went from non-writer mom, 3 of 3, to published poet. How does that happen? Because I've been a poet for 52 years and I've never, well, I had 1 poem published. How's that happen so I can do it?
Magic. A lot of magic.
Lisa Browning. Magic.
Yeah. And a can-do attitude. I just don't really take no for an answer, maybe, too.
I love that. That's fantastic. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always kind of written, but I never thought of like actually sharing it. My writing was always just for me to figure my own thoughts out and heal whatever I had going on, just make sense of it. And when you're kind of in the thick of things and you're trying to figure yourself out, you often think you're the only one that's feeling those feelings. And then you start to share stuff and you're like, oh, no, everybody feels those things and everybody's going through their own stuff. And I really don't know what caused me to share the first poem. I shared it on my birthday, 2021. So November 2021, I shared a poem just on my personal Facebook page. And yeah, I really can't remember why I did, because I never even posted things on Facebook. Like I didn't post pictures or anything personal. I really just used it to creep other people, like, you know, normal people do. But then, like, I don't know, I got a good response from the first poem. And so I just kind of kept sharing, and then I still didn't have any plan. There was still no plan of like, I'm going to write a book and whatever. There just wasn't, I was just doing it. And then somebody said, well, when does the book come out? And I was like, hang on, let me figure that out. So then a lady that I know here, I actually used to babysit her little boy. I knew she had published her own books because I had actually had one of her book launches at the library when I was the librarian there. So I just contacted her, Lindsay Brandt, and asked how she made it all happen. And so she gave me Lisa's name and contact info. And so yeah, in like about 6 months, I wrote, there's about 72, I think, or something poems in the book. And I wrote those all from November of 2021, and then we published in like June, I think, of 2022. So, and that was like, I'm really particular about what I share too. So they all just kind of like, there was way more than the 70 that we did put in the book. So I don't know, it came from somewhere. So, and it's still coming. So
Right.
Yeah. So I read a lot of poetry too, Kellyanne, and you're absolutely right. A lot of it comes from the heart. Some of it you don't want to share because it's too personal, but other things you do. And about I don't even know if it was 6 months ago, a year ago, I started sharing like in-depthly on Facebook. Like, so I do Soaring Profits, I do videos and stuff that share a certain part of me. But then there's this whole other part of me that I share on Facebook that's a little bit more in depth. And it is scary when you first start doing it, to do it. Poems are a little bit easier because you can hide messages inside poems, right?
yeah.
But
I love that.
I like how you said that it was therapeutic. So could you explain how writing poetry is therapeutic to you?
Honestly, I'm not really sure I can do it justice to explain it. It's just that, like, if there's something weighing heavy, and then I write about it, it just makes it feel less, well, you feel less alone.
Yeah.
Even before you share it, you're like, it's like, you just kind of, it's there on paper. It's not just all up in here.
Yeah.
And, because up in here can be not very nice sometimes, but it just is what it is on paper. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, you get it out.
Real. You can touch it. It's tangible. You can manipulate it and change it, and you can really examine it when it's on paper. When it's in your brain, it can be abusive and attacking sometimes. When you have it on paper, you're in control of it.
Yes. And it can be so repetitive. I can get into thought processes that just like, they're going nowhere fast, but it's fast. And so yeah, to get it out feels to in control, feels good, but also like I often write not maybe what I'm feeling at the time, but what I need to hear to get me through what I'm feeling at the time. So it's like another part of me that's already the healed part can look back and at the one who needs the help and be like, tell me what I need to hear to move to the next phase, kind of thing. Right.
It's funny you should say that, because so I share on, like I just said, I share on Facebook like you do. And I will often get DMs and stuff. Are you okay? Is everything all right? And I always respond with, no, if you're reading it, this is me dealing with it. This is me sharing with you how I fixed it. It's not me saying I want help. So no, I'm good. Like you said, that's my voice, making it clear, understanding it, writing it down, and then almost talking myself through that. Like you said, the person in the past. I'm talking to the person in the past. This is where we are now, right? It was beautiful. I like how you said that. Yeah.
And also, even if you were asking for help, what's wrong with that? We can share, like we can share when we're in the moment and we need the help too. We don't have to be healed to share, because we're never fully healed. And to even say like healed, like I'm not broken.
Right.
But, you're just figuring life out. So I guess the sharing has really, being a stay-at-home mom can be very lonely.
Yeah.
And I think what I've realized is a lot of people feel lonely.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more than I realized. And so I just like to share things that hopefully make people feel less lonely.
Right.
Or less alone in what they're feeling.
Yeah. So if you share a story of something you're going through and they connect with it, then they can identify with the fact that they're not alone, just like you're not alone. Right. And I get what you're saying. Like, there's a lot of people that are out in the world working, daily. They go to work every day, they come home every day, and they're probably more lonely than you are. So there's a lot of lonely people in the world, and we sometimes forget that. Like we sometimes don't see it because we all wear masks, right? So that's what I'm finding with my writing as well, is that a lot of people, they may not write right on the Facebook page, but they'll DM me and go, hey, what you said really meant something to me, and then share their story, which is like so beautiful. Like when they share their stories with me, I think that's just such a beautiful thing. And I try, you know, to cherish that. Sometimes the stories are hard because, you know, I've lived a pretty, like, I've had a tough life, but I've lived compared to some of the people that send me messages, my life is beautiful, right? And you sometimes forget that when you're in your own life. But yeah, no, I think what you're doing is amazing. Like, so I read one of the poems on my Instagram about 2023. And I thought it was great. It was such a great poem about, you know, what you hope for and what you hoped, you know, it kind of covered what 2022 was like, and, you know, what you hope for 2023. So could you explain that poem a little bit? If you want to, you could read it, but I don't know that you have access to it right here.
Yeah, I'd have to.
Because I read it poorly. I stutter a lot.
I can read it. I just have to find it.
Okay. So what was that all about while you look? If you can multitask, you probably can.
Yeah, well, it's just about like every, you know, like you see all the new year, new me, and making all the resolutions. And I've always been that girl. I'm like, you know, January 1st comes around and I'm always going to be so much better this year. I'm going to be so much better. And I'm just over that. I think I am good. I'm just good the way, you know, like I'm enough and all that stuff. Right. So not that I've always been on a self-improvement journey, like fitness and, your mind and your soul and everything. I've always just wanted to improve, and I'll never stop feeling like that. But I also want to enjoy life as it is and as I am, and not always feel like I need to be better, braver, faster, stronger, smaller. I want to always work on myself and always enjoy myself as is. I don't know if I'm getting the right poem. Let me look.
I don't know. It's 2023.
Let me see. I'll read it. Yeah. Okay. I found it.
Perfect.
Dear 2023, please walk in with your head bowed, full of grace and reverence. For I have no more need for resolutions, nor shame for the year left behind. I did what was needed to survive what was given, and I've grown stronger with each month. All I ask for in return is a little time for celebration, for surviving those times that could have easily wrecked me. For I'm still here, and I'm still whole. There's still love in my heart, wisdom in my mind, a little strut in my step, and dance left in my boots. So 2023, bless me. Give me a year of ease and contentment. Give me a wee break from all the hard, and myself still good and the easy.
That's awesome.
So yeah, like it's also like, just give me a break. I just want a break.
Yeah. One of the reasons I picked that to read on Instagram,
I don't know if I answered your question.
Because I identified with it. And I think a lot of the profiteers out there would identify with it too, is that, you know, 2022 was a tough year for everybody. Prices, and like Pat says, prices went up, and stock markets crashed, and housing was tough, and everything you went, every direction you possibly could go, even personal relationships. I'm gonna, like, I don't know what the stats are, but I'm gonna tell you divorces were up in 2022 for sure. Like, people had to stay at home with their spouses. I'm sure it didn't work very well, but I think everyone feels tattered and torn, and that poem just described it so well. Like, you know, like I survived it. So could you please just give me, I'm not even asking for a full 2023. I just need the beginning. Just give me the beginning to, celebrate. Let me kind of ease into 20. And I was like, oh my God, I love it. I'd love to just ease into 2023, maybe celebrate a little bit. And then you can abuse me again.
Yeah.
But for now, yeah, that's what I got.
Just a wee
So
break.
You're the author. What did you mean by it?
No, that's it. And I don't, to be honest, I don't know always that I mean one thing. I mean it to be whatever you read it to be. Sure. Whatever you need it to be. That's what it means. But that is what it means to me. I mean, like, I can get so caught up in, like doing it, being the best mom I can be and the best wife and the best. And I also want to just like relax and enjoy my kids and enjoy time with my husband and, just have a little bit more fun. But
so Kellyanne, obviously, you start this writing. You were a teacher, and then you find yourself as a librarian raising 3 children. It sounds like the written word was something that you were inspired by at a fairly young age and decided to kind of take your path down that way. What was it as a child, or what was it maybe in high school, something along those lines, that allowed you to develop that love of the written word, the love for literature, and then grow that?
Yeah, good question. Well, I'm Irish, so I like to talk. Words are a good. I like to tell stories.
What are you talking about?
What? Lebanese Irish.
I'll take it.
Sorry.
Yeah, storytelling though. Like, I've always liked to tell a good story. And I come by it honestly, I guess. So, I've always loved to read, and it's like how I write is I don't know what I'm about to write, but a line will just pop into my head. Like one, like for that poem in particular, I think it was just please walk in with your head bowed. And that was like the line that popped into my head. And I automatically thought of the year 2023 that like have some reverence for me having survived to this point, having gotten to this point, 38 through and whatever, all the crap we've been through. So just from that one line, then I just sit down and it just kind of flows out. But it's just always been like that for me. So I remember as a kid, just walking through my parents' fields, and like I said, in the green room or backstage or whatever we call it, writing terrible songs. Like, I can't sing, but I remember as a kid, I love country music. And so I would just like these words and these lines would just pop into my head and I'd just repeat them over and over. So yeah, words have always, like, when I listen to music, it's the words. So for my husband, it's the beat, the melody, right? For me, I have to listen to the words. If I don't resonate with the words, then I'm not really going to like the song. Right. The beat could be anything, but
do you find
like to get me through
of the same song hit differently depending on what you're going through?
Sorry, what was that?
So do you find that the words of any given song hit differently depending on what you're going through in your life? Like, that's what I find, like that, I could hear the same song today and next week I'll hear it, but I'll be going through something completely different. I may be sad, I may be angry, and it just hits differently. And I hear different words and different lines get highlighted than before, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And there's songs that I can't really listen to, like songs that maybe got me through. My kids laugh at me all the time because they're like, Mommy, who's your favorite now? Like, because I'll become obsessed with a certain artist and have to listen to all they have. and like on repeat, because the words resonate.
Right.
And so sometimes I can't listen to them. If it was like a particularly difficult time and I needed those words at the time, then now looking back, I'm like, oh, I don't even want to listen to it. Because it
What's
just
your go-to?
still
Like,
feels
what
kind
is
of wrong.
what is it, obviously you're talking in kind of an ungeneral fashion, but what's your go-to? Like, what is your one artist that is like bottle of wine, box of chocolate? This is you.
Well, right now I listen to Zach Bryan right now. He's like a newer country artist, kind of. His song was on Yellowstone, so he like blew up.
Okay.
But I like country. It's all country. Give me some good Garth Brooks or the old stuff. Like I listened to Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton and Loretta Lynn. Like I like the old stuff, but but then I'll get obsessed with like a new, for a while it was Morgan Wallen, for a while it was Lainey Wilson. So, but I'll always go back to the old.
Well, that's it, right? Like I think a lot of the older country artists back in the day, whether they got their just credits for what they were putting out there, but you get like artists like Christofferson, like Waylon Jennings, like these guys that were writing, these singer-songwriters that were doing really interesting stuff back in a time when country was shotgun, dog died, girlfriend left.
Right.
And it's, when you look at it back now, they were doing really interesting wordsmithing then that, a lot of the guys now, you put a beat track to it and it just doesn't kind of hold the same bucket of water, if you get what I mean. So I've always been a huge Garth Brooks fan. I've been to a couple of his concerts, and I've always kind of looked at it as the Garth Brooks and Patrick show when I get there. By the time I kind of sang my heart out and put my all into that about 3-hour performance. And he does a fantastic show. And it all comes from that very special place that he sings from, and that resonates with his audience. He brings those people, and some of his live stuff, the way that he discusses how music affected him as a child and how it affected his family and what it meant to him, and that now that he's able to pass that on. And that's kind of really unique to artists. And then you have someone like yourself who's taking that and directing that into a poetry line. So like, obviously your poems have meanings. You have your 2023 meaning. What are some of the other poems that you've worked through, and give us a kind of an insight into some of your hardest works, some of your easier works, and some of the works that you've reflected on over the last little while?
Well, I did pick out one that I wanted to read that just kind of explains how when I'm not writing and I'm working through things, I'm walking. I walk it out. And so this poem that I was going to read kind of explains how that all works. So if you don't mind.
Perfect.
Not at all. That's why you're here.
I took my sorrows to the woods. My brain had given me no rest for days upon days, telling me stories of how little I was doing and how everything mattered so very much. It carefully explained how all of the tasks were so big and my reach so small. The voice in my head, so loud and convincing, I was sure it must be correct. Surely it was true that I was growing ugly and old, powerless to accomplish even the smallest of dreams, and quite unlovable as well. But a funny thing happened the further I walked, and the deeper the woods became. The voice that had hounded me previously so strong and so sure became doubtful and unsteady, quieter with each step I took. It began to wonder aloud if maybe it had been too harsh, too quick to judge. Maybe if the smallest of plants and animals were important to the whole of the woods, perhaps I wasn't so insignificant after all. And as I reached my spot, that crooked old tree with the low-growing branch, perfect for a sit and a think, the voice changed its tune, turning towards the sun, the possibilities and the plans, the hopes for what still could be, and for the pride for what was already being done. for myself, my loved ones, and for the greater good. So the voice and I returned home, friends once again, talking excitedly of love and life, with laugh light, all forgiven and forgotten once again.
That was really good.
So that was a big one for, thanks. That was a big one for me to like explain my thought process. Weird. It's kind of weird to be a woman, a mother, and to admit that sometimes we struggle. Like, you know, you're supposed to have it all together and all that stuff, right? And happy go lucky. But our brains aren't always nice. And it's okay. And there's ways of working through it. And there's always that hope that you can work through it, right? So that's the way I do it. I walk and I write. So that kind of explains that part. Some of the ones that were, I don't know that there were any really hard to write. There was definitely been ones that I haven't shared because they're too hard to share. And there's ones I'll never share. But they're not, I honestly can't say that they're ever hard to write. Also because I don't fight it. If it's not flowing out, then I feel like it's not ready to come. So I'll kind of like jot down some important parts, and sometimes I'll come back to it and the rest of the poem comes out. And other times, like I'll look through the notes in my phone, and sometimes it's just like random words and sentences and phrases that maybe will never become anything. Sometimes they find their way into a different poem. Like I'll be writing a poem and I'll think about that line I jotted down in my notes, and it'll find its way into it that way. But yeah, the struggle is never in the writing. The struggle is always in the
sharing.
Emotional.
Yeah. No, I think the poem that you just read was just amazing. Like it really does describe, it describes my running, it describes my walks. You're very right. You're like, I talk about that quite a bit on our Soaring Prophets videos that I do, about how quite often our voices that are inside aren't quite our cheerleaders. They're more our attackers. And we have to really work on changing those voices, because those voices are from our past. They're from people that, you know, weren't so kind to us, or people that, you know, really didn't understand who we were. And now we've kind of let them live for free in our heads, right? So we have to work on removing those voices. And you're right. Sometimes you're walking along through the forest, and your brain has those dark thoughts that, you know, like, there's no way I'm going to be able to move forward. There's no way I'm going to be able to accomplish this, or I'm going to be able to do that. This is foolish to even think about it. But by the end of the walk, when you get to that point where the sun hits you and the dopamine kind of kicks in because you're doing some exercise, your brain opens up and you realize that it's not all darkness, and that, you know, you can do it. And wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if your brain always treated you like that, always told you, you know, all the good things that you did, not all the negative things that you did.
We'd be monsters.
Exactly. We would be Pat.
We'd be terrible.
We would be Pat.
Well, yeah, it's funny. Okay.
Right.
Well, and it's funny. I kind of knew that at some point, you know, I was going to have this conversation, but it's like a lot of the stuff that we have individuals on Soaring Prophets, and we, you know, a lot of the same stories, and a lot of it is the self-development and that sort of thing. And I don't know, but it's not my real. It's not my reality. It's not my world. I don't think like that. It's just maybe the way I was brought up. It's just very different. And maybe it's just the experiences that I've had in my world. But I've come across so many individuals that have very non-linear thinking when it comes to solving problems. Like, for instance, you know, James and his, for the profiteers that have watched us, obviously going through, you know, his weight loss journey and what started that. And, you know, James was going through all of the processes, all of those, you know, struggles, all those, you know, victories and successes. I'm very linear. I'm just like A to B. If it does not work, get out of the way. I'm going to bulldoze over it, and it is what it is. That's the way I think. I don't have a lot of those, and maybe, you know, someday I will sit down with a counselor and they will figure out why. But I don't. Like, I don't, if it's just like the self-reflective property. But for me, it's very functional, right? Like, obviously everyone has trauma. Everyone has, you know, their own relationships, their own problems, their own issues. But for me, I don't know. Maybe I just don't have the time, but I just roll through those things. And the self-reflective aspect that I value very much in what you folks are, you know, talking about, and the piece that you guys are putting together here, it's just not a big part of my world. And I find
you don't internally self-reflect. So both Kellyanne and I are talking about an internal self-reflection where we deal with our things internally. We write them down. We share with the world. You do it through conversation, and you do it quite well through conversations, like the conversations you and I have and you have with other people.
Right.
You share stories and thoughts and emotions then, because you're a very, you know, strong people person. It's just a different thing. Kellyanne and I kind of, or I'm guessing just from what this little bit that I know of Kellyanne at this point, we do some of it internally. So that stuff that you do, you know, maybe you don't allow it to get as deep as we do. You know, like we get it a little bit more internal.
It's likely an intelligence factor. I'm sure there's probably a joke in there as well. So.
I would never, ever say anything about your intelligence.
No, so I again, sorry, go ahead, Kellyanne.
Go ahead.
No, I want to hear what you say, and then I'll say what I want to say.
Well, so again, some therapists I'm sure that are potentially watching, maybe, you know, ex-girlfriends, all sorts of different things, will have different reasons as to why I do what I do. I just don't get bogged down in it. Like, for me, it is irrational to get bogged down. And, like, don't get me wrong, poetry is a beautiful thing. Writing down and journaling and all that sort of thing is a beautiful thing. But I functionally don't do it, because it's like you guys, when I sat back, profiteers out there, you know, I'm not much of a listener and a sitting back type person, but I sat back here for probably the first 25 minutes and I listened to you guys talk. And it's an experience that I don't necessarily share. So therefore I listened and, you know, intently was trying to pick up what you guys were doing. And for me, you folks were going through your histories, going through your past experiences, putting it down in written word. And that's fantastic. For me, and my coping, my strategy, whatever you want to call it, for me, that's in the rearview mirror. Like, my growth's already done. Like, I don't do that. It's just a very different way of dealing with it.
Right.
And that's
the day that it's not.
Sorry?
That's it. Until the day that it's not, Patrick. One day,
sure, this
will catch you. It'll be the weirdest thing. It'll just catch you. But no, I get it. I get what you're saying. You're just, but you're also not the creative person either.
No, I'm much more, like I was saying, that linear A to B.
Like, you wouldn't like write, you wouldn't draw, you wouldn't sing, you wouldn't you don't even like dancing. Like really, creativity.
He would sing at Brooks' concert.
Mostly yelling.
He'd sing Garth Brooks.
Yeah. Mostly just yelling. A lot of yelling.
Yeah.
I have a couple things to say about that. It takes all kinds, right?
Absolutely.
But also, when you said like it's irrational, I agree.
Right.
When I'm in it, I can tell myself this is irrational thinking.
Right.
Most of the time when I'm working through things, from now on, I'd be like, what would Patrick do? Because I want to be more like that.
Yeah.
But most days I don't really want to be like that. I don't want to have those, like circular thought processes that don't really feel like they're getting me anywhere. They are in my own way, but it's not an easy way to live all the time. Hence
Absolutely.
the 2023 give me
Right.
ease and contentment, right? Like I'm ready to not have those thought processes. I'm ready to move beyond them.
Yep.
Because it's hard.
Right.
It's draining. It's
So Kellyanne,
exhausting to always feel like that.
I appreciate where you're coming from, and I think that it's incredibly insightful for you to be able to identify where you're like, yeah, no, hey, this is where I'm at right now. This is what I've been through, and where I'm at right now is an irrational response to X, right? And I have a 13-year-old daughter, and you know, my daughter's fantastic. She was an excellent gymnast, and one of the things that always used to blow my mind is that she would get up in underwear and she would stand on a beam this wide in front of hundreds of people and just do it, no problem, right? And to me, that was like an interpersonal confidence, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, that's wild, that's something that people are, you know, blown away by. But when she gets up to do a speech in front of, you know, 20 of her classmates that she goes to school with every day and has all those sorts of things, she should get a little choked up about it and be like, and I'd be like, you can stand in front of 200 people in your underwear that you have no idea of on a beam and do backflips. But
yeah,
one was rational by my perspective, and one was irrational. And it didn't make it any more real or less real, but it was the management of it. Right?
Yeah. So I disagree that it's irrational. I don't think it's irrational. I think it is definitely problematic if you're on a hamster wheel where you're cycling the same thought over and over and not getting a break from it. Absolutely. But I think if you're cycling through an idea, a thought, a problem, and you're working through it, much like your poem that you just read, like wonderfully to us, how you work through a problem, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I think when you work through a problem and you look at all the sides and you look at all the ideas and you break it down, I think that's a much better way than just blowing through something.
How long should that take to be healthy?
Well, it depends on what the problem is, but you know, like Kellyanne, like when you look at a problem and you examine everything and you see it all, you're taking into account other people. You're thinking empathetically about other people. Whereas if you do not do that and you're just going to go, this is the way it is, and you blast right through, you're not taking into account anybody but yourself. And that's not.
I feel like I should be in between you two a little bit.
Oh, I'm not saying.
We can swoop you in here. Yeah.
Let me just be the mediator.
This is very normal. It's fine. No, I'm not saying.
Oh, I know. I'm so sure.
Talking about the difference in opinion, like the difference in. I think that if you think through a problem before you just act, then you think about other people. There's a big piece of that.
But James, that's being an adult. Like being an adult is to rationalize the entire complex problem.
Yeah.
That's what you do at the speed of light every day, right? Whether you're driving down the road and you're, you know, coming up to a red light, you're not going, I'm blowing it, because who cares about other people? But you can problem solve all of those things in very different ways. And that's where I'm saying is that you can't see the next light if it's always the rear view. If you're always looking behind you. And I'm not
okay, but if you're going in a circle, right? Sure. Like I think you're linear, right? You're saying you're very linear.
Yep.
I'm like I think of it as like a labyrinth, right? So I'm like if the problem's in the middle, I'm always getting closer to if the solution's in the middle, right, I'm always getting closer to it. Mm-hmm. But as I'm circling around it, like nothing's ever always in the rear view and nothing's always in the fore view. Right. I'm coming around from all different angles and I'm seeing it. So I'm never going to say linear's right. And I'm never going to say you're you and you're you and I'm me. Right. But for me,
yes.
And I don't know any other way of being, but my husband's very linear.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I feel like when I think things through and think them through, and like James says, like take into account other people's views, and I can look at a situation, I can walk into a room and see what's happening and see everyone's point of view. I can just so raising 3 kids and a husband.
He can hear you.
I know. I just feel like I'm really able to lead and help and guide when I can see everyone's point of view. And I think that comes from not just plowing through. And I think the world needs people who plow through. And I think the world needs people who circle. It is just the way it is. So I'm a circler.
Absolutely. Like, so
but
I wasn't bad mouthing Pat, and he knows that. Like, we're brothers in arms and everything. His way and my way.
No, I know.
Well. So I see all sides of a problem, and I usually come to him, and then we work at a solution together, and then we just drive ahead. But there are times when my way works better, and there's times when his way works better. You know, like there are times when you have to, like you said, you have to take in consideration all of the things in the room, all the moving parts to understand it fully enough to solve a problem. Like if you're working with someone who has autism, for example, you can't just smash ahead with that. Or if you're working with, you know, a group of people that all have their own personalities and thoughts, and you can have a leader that just leads and says, just go do this. But sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes they need an explanation, in which case our style works a little bit better, because we can go, yeah, okay, I understand why you're saying, but this is the reason that we're doing it. You know, this is the reason that we're going ahead in this direction, because we have thought about this, this, and this, and this, right? And
at the same time, sometimes I need my husband to grab my hand and pull me forward too, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah. And there's times with Pat and I, like, so I come to him with an idea, and he's
you
like,
grab his hand,
dude, that's way too complicated.
Right.
We just need to do this.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot more sense than what I'm saying, you know? So both are very valid. And if you can find that combination, it sounds like you have, that you and your husband have found that combination. And that's wonderful. It works in business. It works in
nearly
in
killed
life.
us.
Yes, you do have to find that common kind of thread and line, because it does become frustrating for both people. Because for us, it's sometimes frustrating when someone's smashing on ahead and you're like looking at the fallout and going, yeah, but that person that you just, right? Now I got to go talk to them.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, that's a big, that I've written lots about those kind, not directly about that issue, but like just making a marriage work, especially when you're two very different people, right? It can be very exhausting and draining, but you know, it's if you keep plowing through, then you'll get there. But yeah, like I can see, like when it's a child raising kind of thing, right? Like you're coming at it from two different angles. And for a long time I was like, oh my God, we're screwing it up because we're so different and we're trying to come at it from two different angles.
Right.
But I think as the kids have grown, like it's really balanced them out too. Like they can see, it from both angles, but they can see us coming together. So
how old are your children, Kellyanne?
Well, 8 and 11 tomorrow, and 13.
Wow. Nice.
Very
just
good.
turned 13. So we're new to the teen world.
Good luck.
But we feel like we've been here.
Yeah, I've been 5 months in the teen world myself. So far, so good.
Still alive.
Threaten murder a lot.
My advice to them
is the linear way.
Start getting your youth locked up now because they leave. I'm just saying, you don't want them to leave right now.
I didn't hear you.
Leave. I said get them used to being locked up, tied up in their room, because you don't want them to leave. Because both mine have left, and they have wonderful careers and wonderful life. But it's very sad that when they leave. So that's what I keep on telling
you. You have grown children?
Yeah. Sorry?
Oh, okay. I
She
didn't know
asked
you
if
like
James
you don't look
you have
old enough
grown
to have grown children.
Are you talking about me or him? Me.
James.
Oh, that's very kind. Aren't you the kindest human being ever? No. And now I know you don't watch our show. Yes, I have a 25-year-old and a 24-year-old.
I watched Lisa's.
Yes.
I did watch
Oh, yeah.
Lisa's.
Yeah.
We were probably very kind to each other during Lisa's because she's a very nice person. But sometimes I get abused because I'm so old, because I'm a very old man.
I usually make old jokes. Well, there was all the teasing for the years, and now he's doing well, and he's lost all this weight, and he's like becoming uber successful in the running room world, all this. So it's hard for me to rip on him anymore. But
well, because what you don't know is not too long ago, Patrick couldn't walk because he was trying to lift the baby Jesus. So last week we were talking about it with Rachel, and Rachel's she works for Pulse. She's a
personal trainer.
Personal trainer. That's the words I was going for. Anyway, so we were talking about how Pat was trying to lift. Go ahead, Pat. See, this is where I become old because I can't.
Yeah, you're good. The memory's great.
He was trying to lift the nativity scene and hurt his back. So then it's hard to tease me. Go ahead.
Yeah, the big storm that we had blew over a nativity scene at the church locally here. So I went over with my daughter and tried to lift it back up Christmas Eve. And I should not have.
No. He was took him a week or two to recover. But
that's big on Pat's getting old too, is what that is.
Yeah. So it's hard to say that I'm old when I'm running and not limping. Just saying. Right. Yeah. So we slam each other.
How old are you, Patrick?
22.
How old are you, Pat?
Try again.
I'm 30.
Okay, and you have a 10-year-old, so
yeah, do the math on that one.
I'm 38.
Very young. You're sorry?
She's 38.
I'm 38, and I feel like
similar.
I'm 38.
Yeah.
Hey.
And James?
I am 52.
52.
I'm an old man. So I came by it honestly, my children.
But I mean, in this last year, I feel like I got plantar fasciitis in my feet. So I went I like my fitness, I like to stay as fit as possible. Yeah. But everything just kind of went downhill this year, and like body wise, and it's rough. Like I'm like, oh, I'm young, I'm doing it, and then I wasn't so much. So I'm just trying to like climb my way out of that.
No, I wasn't.
Got my orthotics. Yeah. I wasn't doing it. So it wasn't so hot.
I think for me it was around. I was a big man, but for me it was around 40. So it's right around that time your body just like, no, like you've abused me enough. Get it together, or you're not going to be able to walk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I suggest yoga. Yoga has been wonderful for me. Stretching my body.
I do the yoga.
Yeah, it's perfect. And running has been wonderful, although it's not great on your joints. So if you're looking to fix your joints, not so good.
So I don't like to, rub James here, but after the Christmas that I had, I actually did do my first ever yoga class. And by yoga class, I mean basically at the foot of my bed with the laptop on the bed going, I got to do something. And that was it. Stretched out the lower back. I think the lady's name was like Linda, Yoga with Linda. And it was like the wildest 10 minutes of my life. So that was.
And how did you feel after, though?
You know what? I think I watched the Yoga with Linda like 9 times to figure out what the hell was happening before I really actually got into it. Because I'm like, I don't know, it's a workout. I'll be fine. Play. And she's like, and now do X and now do Y. And I'm looking at it going, what is that?
And now rise with the sun.
Right.
And
so I'm like, I gotta watch this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
No,
So
there
I
is
watched
there is a
some-
learning curve for sure. So there is such a thing as basic yoga, but so how I started is I went to classes, and that was very helpful. And then I went back to videos. But if you start with yoga with Adrienne, she's amazing. She is like, she breaks everything down for you. She's not paying us for this at all, but she breaks everything down for you. And while she's doing the moves, she actually talks you through them. So she's just perfect for it. And she's on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But
Kelly,
you
obviously it sounds like you use fitness and that sort of thing as well as, a bit of a stress reliever, another aspect to your personal well-being and wellness. And what is the difference between kind of your writing and then what's the difference between kind of the physical outlet?
Well, I think the writing comes more spontaneously. I need to be really consistent with my workouts to make sure I get them in and everything. And that, like, if I'm not consistent, then a week can go by and all of a sudden I've not done a workout, right? Like, I will have moved through my day.
Right.
I will have walked the dog or whatever, but I do the Beachbody workouts, and I've done those for 10 years, probably.
Okay. Yep. Peter or Tony Horton doing his thing.
Yeah, I haven't done his. He's intense.
he does that. What is it, like P90X and all those other ones?
Yeah. I actually just started one recently in the last month or so that's a no impact one, because I was finding my joints were just with the plantar fasciitis in my feet.
Yeah.
And then my knees hurt and my ankles hurt. And it's funny because my husband, whenever I would do the workouts, he'd always be like, that can't be good for your knees. That can't be good for your back. And it turns out he was right. So
those damn linear thinkers.
So this no impact one has been really good though, because it's like very like muscle under tension, kind of like very slow. So it's the same kind of movements that I've always done, but just very slow and all with weights, which they say for aging women, you got to lift your weights. And I'm an aging woman. So,
That's so funny. You're a child. You're so young and you're an aging woman. I just think it's funny.
Well, we're all aging.
Yeah, we all are aged, but you're not an aged woman. You're young, and very young.
Maybe in 2023, I'll feel young again.
Yeah, you're young. You're just hurting a little bit, and you just got to figure out the way ahead. It really is not because you're an old woman. Oh my God, don't start thinking that way. You'll be in a wheelchair by the end of 2023.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, no, it's
I'm
absolutely.
not going to be lifting any baby Jesuses anytime soon, though. I'll tell you that.
That's a good idea. In Patrick's defense, afterwards, I went and I lifted it, and it was very heavy. It was covered in snow because we just had a blizzard. It was not an easy thing to do. It hurt me a little bit doing it. So it was a huge, like when we say baby Jesus, it was a huge, like baby Jesus was the size of like bigger than a baby. It was a big.
It was a panel.
It was a huge
activity scene that was like on the side of a barn panel, and it had blown over in the wind.
It was the size of a bar.
Yeah. It was,
and it was attached to rebar.
Yes, so, it was not good. And I think that was my problem, is that I was uneven in the snow. I'm making up all the excuses I can come up with, but I think I was uneven in the snow, and when Kelly, and it just wasn't good.
It was God's work, though, and and God was saying, Patrick, stop saying.
I sure as shit
go lay down.
I sure shit said some things to God as I was walking across that church parking lot too. That's for sure.
I bet you were praying a whole lot after.
Oh, a lot of prayer. I
can totally picture your daughter too, because she is the kindest, most generous. She's very helpful, I bet.
Earmuffs.
Yeah. Earmuffs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Kellyanne, you know what? Sorry, go ahead. You don't think?
I don't think I answered your question.
Let's hear.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have an answer, but I just don't think I answered it.
Do you find writing or working out, how are they different in helping you with your mental health?
Right.
I think was the basics of the question.
Right.
Pat?
Well, just the physical release in the exercise, right? Like I need both. I really need both. Because I need to sweat it out, and then I need to go write it out. So, but I find it really difficult to fit both in. And
Right.
actually, my husband and I were talking about this the other day, because before I wrote, I would always get up in the morning and work out. Like that was the first thing I did. But now I make a tea and I go sit at my desk and I cover up in a blanket and I journal, and like it's a totally different start to the day. And
Right.
so and both are valid, and I really enjoy both, but it's finding a mix of like getting that physical release in, and having that like quiet time with myself too. So it's just figuring that out. I feel really strongly about like how you start your morning kind of like carries you through your day, right? So my days have been a bit slower maybe since I've started to write. Maybe I don't get as much done. I don't know, but
that
I
has
just
been
need
another
both.
thing
So
I kind of talked about on Soaring Profits, is that a lot of people just wake up and go to work. So you wake up and you hit snooze like 15 times. So what I suggest to people is that they go to bed an hour early, wake up an hour early, and then you get all those things. You wake up for you. So you have an hour of you. If you want to do yoga, you want to work out, you want to write, you have that whole hour to relax before work. And you're not just waking up for work. Because if you wake up for work every morning, you start your day in just such a negative mind space. And we really have to change the way we look at that. But I was getting back to the workout thing. I agree with you. Like, so for me, I get a dopamine release. Obviously, that's part of working out. You get that great feeling that. But also, you're working through the problems in your head, like you talk about. And then, like you said, I often will get an idea for a video that I'm going to do. In fact, quite often, it's in the middle of my run. I just pull out the camera and I start talking, because while I'm running, I've worked.
I have watched those.
Oh, thanks. You love them. I know. So I'm just going to take that as you love them. We'll carry them. Don't worry about it.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share, and subscribe. No, but that's just it. I hit on exactly what you're saying. Like, there's one line that, all of a sudden it will hit in my head, and I'll roll it around, and then I'll develop an idea from it, a whole storyline, a whole video. And then I just start talking in my video. Like that's my script writing. I don't write it down. I write it in my brain, how it's going to evolve. But usually it starts with one little line, like you said, that you roll around. And I think that's all part of my mental health release, is the writing, the working out, all of it encompassed together.
Combined.
And all of it is working together in parts, because we aren't linear thinkers. Full circle.
I wish that on both of you.
Before we move on to whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I think it has been wonderful.
I have a question for you guys.
Oh, sure. Yep.
I wonder about your name, Soaring Profits. Where did that come from?
Well, that's a good question. So way back in the day, we were As We See It with Pat and James, because our original idea was to look at different news videos, and we were just going to talk about it. Just like we said, we talk about, topics and stuff like that. So if it was about Twitter or whatever, and we kind of started doing that. And then we were like, that's not really what we want to do. We kind of want to explore a lot of things. I wanted to explore mental health and physical fitness and solving your problems, right? And Pat wanted to explore money and marketing. And so those are very, at the beginning, this is how we saw it, those are very polar, different ideas. And then as we were kind of working through, first we were cartoons, Kellyanne, if you can believe it. If you go back at the very beginnings, we were just two animated cartoons that talked to each other about different topics. I can
picture it.
Yeah, we were very handsome. And as we kind of kept on talking, we realized that the money and the self-work and the losing weight, it all like was one picture. It's not separate. if you have enough money that you can live a happy, valid life, then that other stuff will just fall into place. But equally, if you can start loving yourself and start, losing weight and start seeing the light and start reaching your goals, you just start making money. Like both of them all work together. And so we were trying to come up with, something that encompasses all of that. And so I wanted to talk about, your soaring soul and being kind of prophetic and like giving people advice in like kind of a prophet kind of way. And he wanted to talk about soaring profits and, money. And that's how it happened. So we just changed profits into PH, and it just fit both of our things. And I think that's how it happened. Eh, Pat?
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. For myself, and kind of what I'd said with you folks, a little bit earlier, I'm much less self-reflective than my partner in crime
We didn't mention that.
No, I don't know, right? It's terrible.
Yeah.
But so that's my sort of thing, right? Is it in so many aspects is that the here and now is far more profitable, right? If in the world of trading, in the world of the stock market, in the world of business, analysis paralysis is a very real thing, and it will kill you. You will not get a deal done. You will not make that move. You will not do whatever. So I myself, I invest in real estate. I have properties. I as well invest a lot of money in the stock market. If you're always circling, and Kelly, and to kind of use that terminology that you brought up, if you're constantly circling, it's very hard to make that decision to do what you need to do in a lot of cases to execute. And that's where, so Kelly, and obviously you've got a solution that you've figured out where I circle, I execute, right? And that's where for myself, I'm a little bit more like straight line, bulldoze, we'll figure it out afterwards, but that's important. And that's where I think James and I kind of come at it from an interesting perspective, is that James is a little bit more circle. I'm a little bit more, we'll fix the wall after I've just pounded through it. And here we are kind of thing at the end of it, right? So it kind of works out well. So that's where it's came from, and where it leads to is kind of interesting. We've got some interesting things coming up for 2023. We've got a lot of exciting stuff. And now you're a part of our world. You get to, in perpetuity, you get to be hanging out with us and going from there. So it'll be cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So Kellyanne, it has been a delight, a sheer delight. And thank you so much for coming on our show and sharing your wonderful poetry and your wonderful thoughts, and such an interesting conversation on how we deal with problems. Pat and I have talked about this before in a different light. We really didn't even talk about the circling around. We more just talked about how we both like look at problems differently, and both are effective. And it was nice to like kind of flesh that out in front of everyone. So here we are at the end of the show, Kellyanne. Here's something that we do at the end is we always have like this catchphrase. So I have a catchphrase, Pat has a catchphrase, kind of like, and that's how the cookie crumbled. I'm Walter Conte, whatever it is. So I'm going to say a little spiel, and I'm going to say my catchphrase, then Pat will say his, and then it'll be your turn to talk about whatever you want, and then come up with something prophetic or something funny. One lady said, don't eat at McDonald's. So it can be anything that you want, anything at all. Profiteers out there, I love you all. Thank you very much for joining us once again. We always have such interesting people. Thank you, Lisa Browning, for bringing all these wonderful people. Thank you for bringing us Kellyanne and her wonderful poetry. If you're interested in Kellyanne or her book, you can definitely go to her Instagram, which is Kellyanne.
Whalen.writer.
Kellyanne Whalen.writer. Yeah.
Kellyanne.whalen.writer, which is Facebook and Instagram. I created a Facebook page the other day too. So
Facebook and Instagram, and then you'll be able to find out how to get her book then. And I recommend, if you can, to go buy it. She does on her Instagram and probably her Facebook have a couple of excerpts from it, so you can see what some of the poetry is. All of it is deep and very thought-provoking. And I think I've always thought that poetry is an important part of life. and it really helps us flesh out ideas. And if you can read her poetry and it makes you feel a little bit less alone, like she said, I think that's a wonderful thing. Profiteers out there, I hope you're having a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together.
Kelly, again, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I appreciate you settling the score for James and I and helping us work through our emotional baggage that we all bring to the table. So thank you very much for doing that. Profiteers, thank you again for joining us again. Like, subscribe, and share. Check out every Thursday night. We do these with very interesting people, and let's make some money together, folks. As always, Kelly, this is where we let you have the last word and lead us out. So.
Okay, well, I just want to say thank you guys for welcoming me so kindly into your world. I was so nervous, so it was lots of fun. Thank you for that. And I will just leave you on the back of my book. So here's my book. And on the back, I say, leave no kindness unshared, no loving words unsaid. So that'll be my catchphrase.